Welcome back to Hilaal Live. Now, Banyana Banyana boycotted a warm-up match against Botswana ahead of the FIFA Women's World Cup later this month. Many of the issues ranging with SAFA, with bonuses and the state of the pitch at the Tholakele Stadium. Banyana eventually lost the match 4-0. Now, joining us now to discuss this is EWN sports anchor Tholakele Mnganga. Tholakele, good evening and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
What a mess, Tholakele.
To be fair, if you had been listening to what the Banyana Banyana players had been saying in the build-up to that game against Botswana, from Jermaine Supersingwe, Refilwe Jane, Coach Desiree Ellis, they weren't already happy with the opposition. Because how are you a team in playing your last game before you head to the World Cup? You're playing a Botswana who haven't even qualified for the World Cup. Yes, you could argue that a few years ago, the two of them did clash an Olympic qualifier that Botswana beat Banyana in. But when you're going to such a big international tournament, you should be playing the best opposition. You look at the fact that England were playing Portugal in their last home game before heading down to Australasia. That's the level of competition SAFA should have been recruiting. Never mind, then you take them to Tholakele Stadium, a stadium which they haven't played in so many years. But also, if you're going to have it as a farewell game, why not have it at FNB Stadium? Why not have it at Orlando Stadium? And the fact that, once again, unfortunately, bonuses continue to come up within South African football. How are you not discussing these matters before the team leaves? That way, you're not on a public platform where, never mind the football journalists that already expects the chaos that come with the South African Football Association, now the general public know how badly you're treating not just a team that is going to the World Cup, but a team who are African champions, who you've said before deserve equal pay, but are still fighting for the ability to get their own money for their participation at that tournament.
Tholakele, I want to talk about the stadium selection because, with all due respect to the groundskeeper or whoever runs Tholakele Stadium, AD is not world class. You mentioned there that it's the African champions, Banyana Banyana. This is disrespectful, isn't it, to not have moved it to a stadium with world-class facilities, like you mentioned, Orlando Stadium and FNB Stadium, because this is the African champions. It's not just a run-around team. The disrespect, I mean, it's unbelievable, isn't it?
Fahraaz, when you think about the fact that we are technically in off-season, FNB Stadium is open, Orlando Stadium is open. If those two are not a viable option, take it to Dobsonville Stadium. If you're thinking, okay, Joburg won't bring you the crowds, take it to Moses Mabhida Stadium. These are the stadiums that were constructed specifically for our home World Cup. How come is it when we are African champions, the AFCON winners, you are deeming this team not worthy of playing in 80,000-seater stadiums? Are you perhaps saying that they don't have the pull that is required, but then you spend the week building up to these games, you're going out there and you're marketing the team. At the end of the day, this team is going to a World Cup. And Danny Jordan does love to use the excuse of going, oh, the men are not doing this while the women are doing that. If there was ever a time for him to put his money where his mouth was, it was the last week when it came to Banyana Banyana, where you're recruiting the best teams, you're looking for the best surfaces. Because when they get to Australia and New Zealand, Banyana will not be playing on pitches like they had to play at Tholakele Stadium on Sunday. They will be playing on the best of the best pitches. Why are you, as the home association, then not rewarding them by saying, we're going to give you our best standards so that you know exactly what to expect when you get to the World Cup?
Tholakele, I want to bring Danny Jordan into this. I mean, he is as reactionary as anyone would get. I've lost the amount of times that this man has been such a reactionary president. Yesterday was another example, wasn't it? He's doing himself no favors right now. And some would say that he's just even gone beyond his term of being at the head of SAFA.
I think, Fahraaz, beyond anything, yesterday kind of showed what happens when you're very performative in terms of looking at women's football and trying to ensure that there's parity between the men's and the women's game. We speak about equal pay, we speak about gender parity, but when push comes to shove, the South African Association has once again shown us that they don't value this national team. Beyond Banyana Banyana, you look at the money put into women's football within South Africa. Yes, we have the Hollywood-based Super League, but it's still not a professional league. It's an amateur league, and they still have to play within a certain period. And a lot of those games are played as double or triple headers at one stadium, because we're not creating a culture within South African football where we're saying, Kaizer Chiefs, Orlando Pirates have a women's team, because the best way we can get people to buy into the idea of women's football is by having the men's game also supported. So if we're already sending out that message at club level, of course at international level, there's not going to be anyone that's fighting that cause. Because if you as a South African Federation president are sitting there with 5 days to go until your team goes to their second ever World Cup, you haven't discussed how their monies will be divided, when FIFA themselves, it's been almost 2 months since they set out the pay structure in terms of who walks away with what at the group stages, at the knockout rounds, and how much the champions will walk away with. And also keep in mind that the money breakdown isn't just for players. It's also saying associations will also be getting a certain amount, irrespective of how the team does on the pitch. So how hungry are you for that money? Money that, by the way, you're not investing back into grassroots women's football. How hungry are you that you want to deny this national team that has always gone above and beyond to make sure the standards of this game are being raised? Some of them have had to play through the Sasa League before they were eventually recruited into overseas sides. But even that has not been good enough on the South African landscape for them to be deemed worthy of things that their male peers, get easily when it comes to their game.
Tholakele, I want to bring the topic of money and bonuses, because a few weeks ago, Danny Jordan himself said, well, we're looking into potentially having equal pay between the men's team and, of course, the women's team. Yesterday, when all of this had happened, you're just thinking, no, this may not happen, because there's no will for it to actually happen.
You know, Fahraaz, you look at the fact that even before an AFCON qualification campaign or a World Cup qualification campaign starts for Bafana Bafana, we're already told this is the mandate, this is how much the players will be getting, this is the breakdown of all of those financial implications. Dare I say, is there an underlining theme from SAFA where they actually don't expect the ladies to be qualifying for anything? They don't expect for them to be doing well. That once it gets there, everybody's scratching their heads and trying to figure out where's the money going to come from to take care of these things. But even if FIFA is giving you the money, FIFA is not asking you to meet them halfway. They are giving you the money and are saying, give it to the players. They're not asking you guys to pitch in and have the discussion about equal pay on your own terms. They have their own fund that they want to be given to these players. And the wonderful thing about the players that we have that are playing overseas, they're seeing how their counterparts are working within their financial structures. Those that are playing in America, those that are playing in Denmark and Scotland, they're seeing how those national teams are working it. And they're able to say, guys, when we get home and we have to represent this team that we have constantly fought above and beyond for, we deserve to be paid equally to our peers, because the men can continue to fail and they never be punished for it. But it's like the more the women are successful, the more they suffer from their success.
Tholakele, I want to bring in Desiree Ellis. I mean, we've seen her as a player, passionate, gave her whole heart towards the game. As a coach, she's done the same also. I mean, she's the first coach to win the Africa Cup of Nations. She broke down in tears yesterday. You have to feel for her, have you? Because, I mean, she just doesn't deserve this for a woman who's given more than 100% to women's football in this country.
I think the saddest thing for Coach Des is the fact that she will know exactly how those players are feeling. She will know what it's like to give your blood, your sweat, and your tears, and to have the association look you in the eye and say, yeah, we'll deal with your problems when we're ready. She knows everything. And I bet you behind the scenes, she's fighting that same cause for them. She's 100% behind them, because she knows what it's like to be making the sacrifices for the sport that they love. But unfortunately, the association, the board, the infrastructure is not set up to love you back. Unfortunately for her, because she is a SAFA employee, she doesn't get the luxury of having to tap out and wanting to say, you know what, I don't want to partake in this game. I don't want to coach the side, because it could have long-term ramifications for her. Never mind beyond the World Cup. would Safa have said to her, if you don't take charge, you actually won't travel with the team. So she's caught in a situation where no matter who she supports or who she shows up as, she's going to lose. But I think because she's been a player, she's been the captain of this team, she's been an assistant coach to this team, she's now the head coach. She knows exactly what the players are fighting for. And she always speaks about the legacy of the national team, because it's not about the Tembi Khatlanis that are playing now, the Janine van Beeks, the Refilwe Janes. It's the ladies that are coming through the system that we hope that 5 years from now, we're not still having these same conversations, because this talented group of players who've broken down the barriers, who finally won us a continental title after 5 final appearances, who were the first team to ever qualify us for a World Cup, and now they've made it back-to-back World Cup appearances. They continue to break the barriers. They continue to move overseas. They continue to show that even amidst the lack of care, the lack of investment in this game, they've got the ability to go above and beyond. And Desiree Ellis is the face of that, because we've known her since the women's game within the South African landscape has started. And I think if she sat yesterday as she watched that 13-year-old make her debut before the national team have to leave for a World Cup, as she sat there, she probably thought to herself, I cannot believe in 2023, this is what a national team is still fighting for. Because then, what have been the sacrifices? Why did they get to this point if they are still not respected enough to be given the money that they've rightfully earned?
Tholakele, unfortunately, we have to end it there. I wish we had more time to continue this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
That's Tholakele Mnganga, EWN sports anchor, just talking to us about what had happened yesterday at the Tholakele Stadium. We just hope that when the ladies leave in just over 2 weeks' time, that they leave with the right mindset, that they can represent this country. They are right now the only shining lights of our football in this country. And unfortunately, they've been dragged into this absolute mess right here. So we hope that things will change with regards to that. But as we know the history of South African football, that is far from happening. After the break, I'll have your latest in news. Do stay tuned.